January 6, 2021 will forever be known as America's Insurrection Day, the day President Trump tried to overturn the results of a free and fair election he lost. He incited an armed invasion of the US Capitol building, resulting in 6 deaths, including a police officer beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. Trump supporters intended to take hostages and execute members of Congress. They carried cable ties and erected a gallows to hang Vice President Pence and Speaker Pelosi. They thrashed police officers with flagpoles and smeared the walls of the Capitol with their own feces. This act of domestic terror was organised and paid for by Donald Trump. Trump is now the first US president in history to be impeached twice, the second time for inciting insurrection. The FBI is currently arresting the failed coup's MAGA terrorists and investigating the involvement of government officials and security and police officers. More violence is being planned across the US by Trump supporters in anticipation of Joe Biden's inauguration as president on January 20th. Political and business leaders from across the world and from all sides of politics condemned Trump and the coup unequivocally. Even Trump ally Boris Johnson spoke out against the attack on democracy. One notable exception is our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, one of the few world leaders refusing to condemn Trump and his seditious act. Morrison stated, "It's not for me to run a commentary on those things, and I won't." Let's not forget, Trump just awarded Morrison the Legion of Merit, one of America's most prestigious military honours. Morrison also merrily attended a Trump election campaign event in Ohio, an unusually partisan act for an Australian PM. This brings us to QAnon, the Trump-supporting conspiracy cultists who were out in force at the Capitol insurrection. QAnon cultists believe Democrats and major celebrities are part of a worldwide organisation of pedophile cannibals. Even Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews is involved, according to Australian QAnon believers. Twitter just suspended the accounts of over 70,000 QAnon conspiracy theorists for spreading disinformation and lies about the results of the US election and inciting violence. A close friend of Scott and Jen Morrison is a leading Australian proponent of QAnon. His wife works on the Prime Minister's staff. This QAnon friend boasted he had convinced Morrison to add a bizarre reference to ritual child abuse during the national apology to institutional child abuse survivors. Morrison also refuses to discipline Trump-supporting far-right backbenchers George Christensen and Craig Kelly, who continue to spread conspiracies and outright lies about fraudulent votes and the coup. With Scott Morrison disappearing on holiday yet again, Deputy PM Michael McCormack is the acting Prime Minister. Amnesty International has joined a chorus of public figures condemning McCormack after he twice likened Trump's coup to the Black Lives Matter protests, falsely using the term race riots. Our acting PM apparently doesn't know the difference between rallies for racial equality and justice and the attempted assassination of US political leaders. McCormack also used the very Trumpian phrase, "Facts are sometimes contentious," when asked about Christensen and Kelly's lies. Coalition government members, backed by some mainstream media, have invented a new boogeyman. The social media companies banning accounts, including Trump's, because they violate their terms of service. These politicians are cynically using the idea of free speech to cover their support of Trump and his attempted violent overthrow of an election. Note: Trump was only shut down after inciting violence, a crime throughout the world. Former ambassador to Israel and now MP Dave Sharma and Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, the son of Holocaust survivors, have decried the social media bans, defending Trump's right to incite literal Nazis wearing Camp Auschwitz and 6MWE shirts. 6MWE means 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust wasn't enough. Trump's free speech has not been curtailed. While still president, Trump is able to speak publicly in the White House briefing room at any time. As comedian Jimmy Kimmel put it, Trumpers won't shut up about being silenced. Ironically, the same coalition MPs who are crying free speech are quick to shut down opposing debate in Parliament and attempted to shut down ABC reportage of their own minister's sexual misconduct. They also reach for the block button whenever constituents criticise them on social media. It seems free speech should only be free when they agree with it. Not a single coalition MP has spoken out against Trump's failed coup or condemned their colleagues for supporting Trump. They are complicit in their silence. Why is it so hard for Morrison and McCormack to condemn an extremist far-right white supremacist terrorist attack on democracy? The fact that our government appears to be siding with a failed fascist should ring alarm bells for every Australian. Because the same forces that created and unleashed the violence on the US Capitol exist in Australia too. As former PM Malcolm Turnbull wrote in Crikey, this catastrophe could not have occurred without the hatred, division and madness Murdoch's media have promoted for years within the United States and beyond. He added, freedom of speech must never mean freedom from responsibility. The Murdoch media empire is the propaganda arm for the Liberal National Coalition, as it still is for Donald Trump's Republican Party. The Trump monster that Murdoch created broke free, ran amok, and tried to destroy American democracy. Think the same couldn't happen here? Think again.